The rain hammered the fire escape like 1,000 tiny fists, but it was Edward's voice that shattered me first. "Ronnie, I can't do this anymore. It's killing me," he choked out. His words slicing through the storm as he backed away from our cramped Brooklyn apartment window, his eyes wild with something I couldn't name. I lunged forward, grabbing his wrist, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape, because in that split second, I knew our world was unraveling, thread by fragile thread. It had started so innocently, that first kiss. We were 22, crammed into the back of a dive bar in the East Village, the kind of place where the air smelled like stale beer and forgotten dreams. Edward was the brooding artist type, tall, with ink-stained fingers and a smile that could disarm a room full of skeptics. I'd spotted him sketching the bartender's tattooed arm, his pencil flying across the page like he was capturing souls. Me? I was just Ronald Hayes, the wide-eyed journalism major from Ohio, fresh off the bus with a backpack full of notebooks and a chip on my shoulder the size of the Midwest. Our eyes met over a spilled pint, and he laughed. God, that laugh before sliding onto the stool next to me. "You look like you need a story," he said, his voice low and teasing, like velvet wrapped around gravel. By midnight, we were stumbling out into the humid July night, the city pulsing around us like a living thing. We ducked into a shadowed doorway to light a shared cigarette, the flame flickering between us. Our fingers brushed, and then nothing. Just his lips on mine, soft and tentative, tasting of whiskey and possibility. Felt small, that kiss, like a whisper in a hurricane. But it lodged in my chest, a seed that would grow into everything. We didn't sleep that night. We talked until the sun clawed its way over the skyline, sprawled on his lumpy mattress in a walk-up that overlooked the chaos of Avenue B. He told me about growing up in a sleepy suburb of Philly, where his parents pretended his sketches of shirtless gladiators were just art. But the whispers from neighbors cut deeper than any blade. They saw me, Ronnie. Really saw me, and it scared them. I shared my own ghosts. Dad's Bible-thumping rants back in Dayton, the way he'd burn my hidden copies of The Advocate when he found them tucked under the floorboards. "You're my son," he'd growl. Not some freak, but with Edward. Those scars felt like badges, not burdens. By fall, we were inseparable. I landed a gig interning at a scrappy alt weekly, churning out pieces on queer activism and the AIDS crisis ripping through the community. Edward's drawings started appearing in the margins of my articles, haunting portraits of men holding hands in the shadows, their faces etched with quiet defiance. We moved in together that October, pooling our meager paychecks for a one-bedroom in Bushwick, where the walls were paper-thin and the subway rumbled like an earthquake every dawn. Mornings were our sanctuary, coffee brewing on the hot plate, his head on my lap as I read aloud from Kerouac, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my thigh. But love in the city is a jealous beast. Edward's talent caught fire first. A gallery in Chelsea scooped up his series on urban outcasts, raw, charcoal-streaked visions of drag queens and leather daddies navigating the mean streets. Overnight, he was the talk of the scene, invitations pouring in like confetti. I'd watch him at openings, nursing a warm beer in the corner, his laugh echoing off exposed brick as collectors fawned over him. "This is it, Ron," he'd whisper later, buzzed and beaming, pulling me into a cab. "We're making it." I believed him. God, how I believed him. My own path was slower, steadier freelance gigs turning into a staff writer spot at the Village Voice. I covered the Stonewall Riot's 20th anniversary, marching with thousands down Christopher Street, Edward's hand firm in mine amid the chants and confetti. That night, under the rainbow flags strung like garlands, he dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but with a sketch, us, intertwined, our bodies a map of constellations. "Forever starts here," he said, and I kissed him until the world blurred. Yet cracks spiderwebbed in. Edward's nights stretched longer, gallery crawls bleeding into afterparties I couldn't crash because deadlines loomed like guillotines. "Go without me," I'd say, forcing a smile as he buttoned his best shirt. "Tell me everything tomorrow," he would, stories of eccentric patrons, flirtatious curators with European accents, but his eyes would dart away, like he was editing the reel. One evening in early spring, I came home to find him hunched over the kitchen table, surrounded by Polaroids of half-nude models, male and female, their poses fluid and intimate. "Research," he mumbled when I raised an eyebrow, but his cheeks flushed crimson. I let it slide, chalking it up to artistic license. After all, wasn't that what drew me to him? His unfiltered gaze on the world, devouring beauty without apology. But doubt is a slow poison. It seeped in during quiet moments, like when I'd wake to an empty bed at 3 a.m., the scent of unfamiliar cologne clinging to his collar. "Networking," he'd sigh, collapsing beside me, his body heavy with exhaustion. I pull him close, inhaling the lie masked as loyalty, because losing him felt like losing the only light in my orbit. By summer's end, the air between us crackled with unspoken accusations. We fought over trivialities, the unwashed dishes symbolizing my control issues, his late nights my insecurity, but beneath it, a deeper rift yawned. Ambition versus intimacy, the city's siren call pulling him toward glittering horizons while I anchored us in the gritty reel. Then came the night that redrew our map. It was a Thursday, humid and restless, the kind where thunder rumbles without release. I'd wrapped an interview early, a profile on a closeted politician, and decided to surprise him at the Soho loft where he was unveiling his latest piece. The gallery thrummed with the elite, critics in tailored suits, artists with ironic mustaches, a jazz trio murmuring in the corner. I spotted Edward across the room, his back to me, laughing with a man whose arm draped casually over his shoulder. The stranger was older, silver fox handsome, with the easy confidence of old money, think trust funds and Hamptons weekends. I froze, champagne flute halfway to my lips, as Edward turned and their mouths met. Not a peck, but a full, lingering kiss that spoke of secrets shared in sun-dappled bedrooms. The room tilted, voices muffling to a dull roar. I set the glass down, glass clinking like a gunshot, and wove through the crowd, my pulse a war drum. "Edward," I said, my voice steady as rebar, though inside I was splintering. He pulled back, color draining from his face. "Ronnie, shit, I didn't expect." The silver fox arched a brow, amusement flickering like he was watching a particularly juicy melodrama. "Ah, the boyfriend." Charmed. Betrayal isn't a thunderclap, it's a slow bleed. Edward stammered excuses. "It's nothing, just inspiration." But his eyes begged for mercy I couldn't grant. We left separately, the cab ride home a black hole of silence, the city lights streaking past like accusations. Back in Bushwick, the dam broke. "How long?" I demanded, pacing the living room, our mismatched furniture mocking the wreckage. He sank onto the couch, head in hands. A few months. Victor, he's connected. Ron. Galleries in Paris, LA. He sees me, really sees what I could be. And I don't. The words clawed out, raw and ragged. You do. God, you do. But this city's eating us alive. You with your ethics, me with my dreams, we're suffocating. I laughed, bitter as bile. So you fuck the solution? While I'm holding down the fort. It's not like that. He surged up, grabbing my arms. I love you, Ronnie. Always will. But I need more. We tore into each other then. Words as weapons. My stagnation versus his selfishness. Loyalty a chain he mistook for shackles. By dawn, the apartment was a battlefield. Sketches crumpled. My notebooks scattered like fallen soldiers. He packed a duffel with trembling hands, pausing at the door. This isn't goodbye. Just space. The door clicked shut, and the silence roared. Weeks blurred into a haze of chain-smoked Marlboros and all-nighters at the voice office, burying grief in bylines. Friends rallied, drag brunches at the Pyramid. Therapy sessions squeezed between shifts, but the hollow in my chest echoed with his absence. Edward's work exploded. I saw his face in art forum, his name whispered at panels I covered from the sidelines. Victor's shadow loomed large, their photos together a knife twist on social feeds I couldn't unfollow. One rainy October afternoon, as leaves choked the gutters outside my window, package arrived. Inside, that first sketch from Stonewall, now framed, with a note in his looping scrawl, I was wrong. Come find me. My heart stuttered. Was it redemption or another reel? I hailed a cab to Chelsea, the wipers slashing rhythmically, mirroring the war in my gut. The gallery was hushed, his exhibit a labyrinth of light and shadow. I found him in the back room, paint smeared and solitary, staring at a canvas of two figures entwined in storm clouds, one reaching, the other receding. Ronnie, he breathed, turning, his face a map of regret. We stood there, inches apart, the air thick with what-ifs. Why now? I whispered. Because losing you showed me what matters. Victor was a mirage, shiny, but empty. You're real. Our mess is real. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But trust is a fragile bird, wings clipped by doubt. He stepped closer, his hand hovering near my cheek, as if afraid I'd shatter. The canvas behind him loomed like a judgment, those storm-tossed lovers a mirror to our own tangled dance. Give me a chance to prove it, Edward murmured, his voice cracking on the edge of plea. Rain pattered against the gallery's skylight, a soft percussion underscoring the fragile truce we teetered on. I nodded, numb, because walking away felt like amputating a limb. We left together, hailing a cab to a neutral ground, a greasy spoon in the meatpacking district where the coffee was bottomless and the booths worn soft by confessions. Over eggs that congealed untouched. He spilled it all. Victor's promises of European tours. The way he'd gaslit Edward into believing our love was quaint provincialism. He made me feel like a fraud, Edward admitted, stirring sugar into black sludge. Like my art and us was small time. And you bought it? The hurt flared fresh, but softer now, laced with pity. He met my gaze, unflinching. For a minute. But fakes fade, Ron. You're etched in me. We rebuilt slowly, like architects sifting rubble. He moved back in, the apartment awkward with ghosts, his sketches taped over the blank spots I'd left. Dates became rituals. Walks along the High Line at twilight, where the Hudson glittered like fool's gold, his arm around my waist a tentative anchor. Sex was rediscovery, fierce and fumbling, bodies mapping forgiven terrains, his whispers of sorry dissolving into moans. My career crested too, a long-form piece on queer survival in the epidemic earning me a byline in The New Yorker. Edward illustrated it, his lines tender, our names intertwined in the credits like vines. Pride that June was our coronation. Floats thundering down Fifth Avenue, his hand in mine as we cheered from the sidelines, sweat slick and euphoric. "This is us," he shouted over the din, kissing me amid the glitter storm. Unbreakable, but scars itch. Doubts whispered in idle hours, late-night scrolls revealing Victor's curt LinkedIn updates. New horizons await. Edward noticed my flinches, countering with gestures. A weekend in the Catskills, where we hiked fog-shrouded trails, making love in a cabin that smelled of pine and possibility. No more secrets, he vowed, carving our initials into a birch trunk, the bark yielding like flesh. Fall brought harvest gales, and with them, opportunities double-edge. A Berlin gallery offered Edward a solo show, 6 weeks abroad, all expenses paid. "It's huge, Ron," he said, eyes alight as we pored over the contract in our kitchen, takeout cooling forgotten. "But I'll cut it short if..." "Go," I cut in, forcing steel into my voice. "This is your shot. We'll FaceTime every night, like lovesick teenagers." He searched my face, then crushed me in a hug that smelled of turpentine and home. "I love you more than this city, more than the work. Don't forget." His flight left on a crisp November morning, JFK a swarm of harried travelers. I pressed a mixtape into his hand, Springsteen crooning about highways and heartaches, kissing him fierce amid the security line. "Write me letters," I teased. Old school, the apartment echoed without him. I threw myself into work, profiling activists who'd lost lovers to the plague, their stories a bomb and a blade. Letters arrived sporadically, his handwriting slanted with jet lag, tales of schnitzel and saunas, sketches of graffitied walls proclaiming Liebe ist Freiheit. But between lines, a undercurrent, mentions of a curator named Lucas, sharp as a switchblade, gets my vision. I shoved it down, focusing on the Voices holiday spread. Then, 2 weeks in, a package, photos from the opening. Edward midlaugh with Lucas's arm slung around him, their poses too familiar. My stomach nodded. Coincidence? Or history's cruel remix? I called that night, his voice tinny over spotty Wi-Fi. "Babe, is nothing networking, like always?" With tongue, the accusation slipped out, venomous. Silence stretched, then a sigh. "Ronnie, don't. This is my job." "Your job to what?" "Repeat mistakes." The line crackled with static, mirroring the fracture. "I have to go interview tomorrow." "Love you." Click. The words hung, hollow as the room. Doubt metastasized. Friends urged caution. "He's flying high. Clip those wings before they carry him away." But love is irrational, a gambler's fever. I booked a flight on impulse, charging it to my barely solvent card, telling myself it was a surprise, not surveillance. Berlin was a fever dream. Gray spires piercing smoggy skies, Christmas markets hawking glühwein and gingerbread hearts. I checked into a pension near Kreuzberg, the streets alive with punks and poets. Edward's gallery was in Mit, a stark white cube showcasing his evolution, bolder strokes, figures less shadowed, more defiant. I lingered in the doorway, heart hammering, watching him charm a cluster of critics. Lucas at his elbow, their chemistry electric. He spotted me eventually, face crumpling in shock then blooming with joy. "Ron, what the?" He swept me into an embrace that drew stares, his lips claiming mine right there amid the abstracts. We escaped to a nearby beer garden, snow flurrying like confetti, steins clinking as he explained. Lucas was just a fan, intense but platonic, the photos misleading angles. Relief washed me, chased by Weissbier. That night, in his borrowed sublet, a loft overlooking the spree, we made love with the urgency of exiles, his body a vow against the cold. The show was a triumph. Collectors buzzed, papers raved. But as weeks bled into one, I extended my stay, wiring money from freelance scraps. We wandered hand in hand through the Brandenburg Gate, sharing donor kebabs in hidden courtyards, his laughter thawing the December chill. "This is better than Paris," he murmured one evening, tracing my palm under fairy lights. "You make it magic, yet magic phrase." Lucas invited us to a gallery afterparty in Prenzlauer Berg, a warehouse pulsing with techno and topless dancers. Edward thrived in the chaos, his energy magnetic, while I nursed a club soda in the shadows, jet lag and jealousy gnawing. Around 2 a.m., I lost him in the throng, found him later in a side room, Lucas's hand on his thigh, their heads bent close over a shared joint. I didn't confront. Slipped out instead, hailing a cab back to the pension, the city a blur of neon and regret. He stumbled in at dawn, reeking of smoke and shame. "Ronnie, why'd you leave?" "Because I saw enough." The words were ice, my bags half-packed by the bed. He collapsed to his knees, grasping my hand. It was nothing, a buzz, a laugh. Lucas pushes boundaries. It's his thing. "But you're my line." I wanted to bolt, but his tears pinned me. "How many lines, Edward? How many nothings before it's everything?" We argued until the light shifted, accusations volleying like snowballs. He swore fealty, Lucas a footnote. I relented, because forgiveness is addiction, each hit sweeter than the crash. Christmas came, markets aglow with spiced almonds and carols. We exchanged gifts under a plastic tree in the sublet. He gave me a locket with our first kiss Polaroid. A journal inscribed, "For the chapters ahead." Felt like renewal. Berlin's brittle beauty sealing our pact. But packs paper over pits. Back in New York, the high faded. Edward's momentum surged, commissions from MoMA, profiles in interview. I tagged along to events, the outsider in his ascending orbit, my bylines paling beside his bylines. Whispers followed. Edward's the star, Ronnie's the muse. One February night, after a gala at the Whitney, we fought in the cab, me accusing him of drifting, him snapping at my clinginess. "I'm building something, Ron, for us. Us? Or your ego?" He stormed out at our stop, slamming the door on my pleas. Days passed in radio silence, his phone a void. Then, a mutual friend texted, "Check page 6. Sorry." The item was buried in society squibs. Artist Edward Hale spotted locking lips with gallerist Victor Langston at exclusive Tribeca Bash. Sparks fly anew. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. Edward, tucks rumpled, Victor's hand in his hair, a kiss that echoed our first but twisted into parody. Betrayal's second strike lands deeper, carving canyons. I didn't cry, didn't rage. Just sat in the dark, the apartment's hum a dirge, replaying every I love you as lie. He came home at midnight, key scraping like guilt. Ronnie, it's not. Save it. I stood, calm as a grave. Pack your shit. For real this time, he begged. Face ashen, Victor's old habit. A weak moment fueled by champagne and applause. I choose you. Every time, but choices erode. You choose yourself, I said, voice steady. And that's okay. Just not with me. Dawn broke as he left. Duffel slung over shoulder. Our Stonewall sketch tucked under arm like a talisman. The door shut soft this time, final as fog. Spring unfurled without him, cherry blossoms mocking my barren limbs. I quit The Voice for a staff gig at Out magazine, channeling ache into advocacy, pieces on love's fragility in the face of plague and prejudice. Therapy unpacked the patterns. My father's rejection mirrored in Edward's flight, loyalty a currency I overpaid. Months later, at a fundraiser for GMHC, I saw him across the ballroom, thinner, I shadowed, Victor nowhere in sight. He approached during toasts, tentative. You look good, Ron. Proud of you. Thanks. Polite. Distant. Heard the Berlin show's touring. Yeah. Solo now. A pause. Heavy. I miss us. The old pull tugged. But roots had grown. I miss the idea. But we were a story, Edward. And stories end. He nodded, tears brimming, before melting into the crowd. I turned back to my table, laughter rising like yeast, the night alive with new chapters. Yet endings bleed into encores, don't they? 2 weeks after the fundraiser, a manila envelope arrived, no return address, just my name in Edward's familiar slant. Inside, a stack of letters, yellowed and creased, postmarked from Philly, Dayton, Berlin. His confessions, unfiltered, apologies to his parents for the boy they couldn't love, to Victor for the wreckage, to me for the theft of trust. The last one gutted me. Ronnie, our first kiss was small, but it birthed a universe. I burned it down chasing stars. Forgive me not for leaving, but for not seeing you were the light. I burned them in the sink. Blue flames licking ink to ash. A ritual purge. But embers linger. Sleep brought dreams of alleyway downpours. His lips on mine. The city's pulse sinking our hearts. Work became salvation. My series on queer resilience exploded. Podcasts clamored. A book deal whispered. I traveled. San Francisco's Castro for oral histories. Atlanta's underground balls for portraits of chosen family. In a Miami motel, scribbling notes on a balcony overlooking turquoise waves, I met Javier, lithe, with a sailor's tattoo snaking his forearm and a grin that disarmed like sunlight. He was a photographer, capturing migrant stories for NPR, his camera a bridge across borders. We bonded over conch fritters and caipirinhas, his laugh a cascade that washed away Brooklyn's grime. You're carrying ghosts, he said one night, his fingers gentle on my jaw as waves crashed below. Let me help you lay them. Our first night was fire, bodies urgent, his touch mapping unscarred ground, whispers in Spanish I didn't understand but felt in my bones. No promises, just presence. Mornings tangled in sheets smelling of salt and citrus. Afternoons chasing shots of neon-lit Art Deco facades. Back in New York, Javier stayed, a sublet in my building, his gear cluttering the hall like joyful clutter. We built routines. Runs along the East River at dawn. His hand brushing mine as gulls wheeled overhead. Evenings cooking arroz con pollo. Salsa pulsing from a Bluetooth speaker. He saw me, flaws and fractures, without flinching. Eres fuerte, Ronnie, he'd murmur, pulling me close. Stronger than you know. Edward's orbit brushed ours sporadically. A joint exhibit at the Leslie Lohman, where his abstracts hung beside Javier's prints, courtesy of a curator's whim. We attended separately, but eyes met across the room, his lingering on Javier's arm around my waist. Later, a note slipped under my door. Happy for you. Still love you. E. Javier found it. Read it aloud with a shrug. Old flames flicker. But we're the bonfire. Summer swelled, humid and heady. We road-tripped the coast. Asheville's Blue Ridges for folk festivals. New Orleans' French Quarter for jazz funerals that danced grief into grace. In a Baton Rouge B&B, under mosquito-netted canopy, Javier proposed not with diamonds, but a vintage Leica, engraved para mi luz. Marry me? He asked, lens cap in hand. Let's shoot our story together. Tears pricked. I said yes, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of gumbo and forever. News rippled. Invitations sent. Families notified. Dad's card arrived crisp and signed, Proud, son. Love, always. Mom's call was tearful, promising pie at the rehearsal. Javier's clan flew in from Havana, a whirlwind of abuelas and rums, filling our apartment with plantains and prayers. But joy's shadow is vigilance. Edward resurfaced in autumn, unannounced, on our doorstep during a pre-wedding brainstorm. Rain lashed the awning, his coat dripping like penance. Heard about the wedding. Congrats. Javier answered. Polite steel. Thanks, man. Coffee inside. We sat in the living room, steam rising from mugs, tension thick as fog. Edward's eyes were hollowed, his latest show a critical darling but personally a pyre Victor's ghost. Lucas's echo, solitude's bite. I hit bottom, he confessed, voice raw. Rehab in the Hamptons, 12 steps and all. Turns out, running's my addiction. I nodded, Javier's knee steady against mine. Good you faced it. He glanced at the corkboard, our save-the-dates pinned like flags. You deserve this, Ron. Him, a beat. Can we talk? Alone? Javier squeezed my hand, excusing himself to the kitchen. Edward leaned in, whisper urgent. I know I don't deserve it, but one last sketch, for closure, against better judgment. I agreed. His studio was a tomb in Williamsburg, canvases shrouded, the air stale with regret. He worked in silence, charcoal whispering across paper. Us, as we were young, unscarred, lips brushing in that dive bar doorway. This is how I remember us, he said, handing it over, his fingers lingering. The touch sparked memory's cruel alchemy. Edward, don't. He stepped back, eyes glistening. Go build your life. Just know. You changed mine. I left with the sketch. Rain-slick streets mirroring turmoil. Javier waited, arms open, no questions, just absolution in his embrace. Wedding prep accelerated, tux fittings in Midtown, vows workshopped over bodega coffee. But doubt's whisper grew, a call from a mutual, Edward's overdose, pills and vodka in his loft, stabilized at Beth Israel. Guilt crashed like a rogue wave. Javier drove me to the hospital, his silence supportive, not accusatory. Edward lay pale in the sterile glow, for dripping salvation, monitors beeping like hesitant heartbeats. "Ronnie," he rasped, hand extending. "Didn't think I'd drag you back. I took it," pulse thrumming. "You almost dragged yourself under." "Why?" "Couldn't outrun it." The emptiness. Tears tracked his temples. "Seeing you happy. It broke me open." Javier hovered in the doorway, then stepped forward. "We're family now, in the broken way. Get help." "For real?" Edward nodded, a ghost of his smile flickering. "I will. Promise." We left him to the fluorescence. Javier's arm my compass. "You okay?" he asked in the elevator, thumb brushing my knuckle. "Yeah. Just human." Winter clamped down. Rehearsals a flurry of nerves and toasts. The night before the ceremony, I dreamed of Edward's sketch, our kiss animating, pulling me under. Woke sweating. Javier's snores a lullaby. The wedding was at the Stonewall Inn, reclaimed as sanctuary, rainbow lanterns swaying, friends in finery, a string quartet weaving Billie Holiday into vows. Dad stood teary-eyed as I walked the aisle, Javier's eyes locking mine, promising oceans. We exchanged rings under a chandelier of prisms. His words, "En tus ojos," "Encuentro mi hogar," drawing gasps and cheers. Edward came, sober-suited, clapping from the back, his presence a quiet grace note. After cake and conga lines, he slipped me a final envelope, a blank check for our honeymoon fund, scrawled "Pay it forward." "Be brilliant. Your first chapter." I hugged him fierce, the circle closing, not erasure, but evolution. Honeymoon in Key West, conch shells and catamarans, Javier's camera capturing sunsets we chased like promises. Back home, life layered, my book deal solidified, his exhibit touring Latin America. We adopted a mutt named Kerouac, walks in Prospect Park a daily sacrament. Years folded, promotions, a loft in Fort Greene, talks of kids via surrogacy. Edward stabilized, teaching at Pratt, mentoring young queer artists. His work softer, more introspective. We'd cross paths at galas, toasts exchanged like old coins. No sparks, just warmth. One spring, a letter arrived, not from him, but to him. I'd been approached for a foreword in his retrospective catalog, Echoes of Intimacy. I wrote it honest, our small kiss as Genesis, betrayals as teachers, forgiveness as art's truest stroke. At the opening, amid champagne flutes and flashbulbs, he read it aloud, voice steady. To beginnings that scar and save, our eyes met, a nod across the crowd. Acknowledgement, not ache. Life, that relentless editor, kept redlining and revising. Javier and I settled into a rhythm that felt earned, not effortless. Date nights at Bamonte's with checkered cloths and Chianti. Lazy Sundays curating playlists that span salsa to Sinatra. Kerouac's paws pattered our floors, a furry chaperone to our domestic bliss. My book hit shelves with a splash. Hearts on the Line, Queer Love in the Age of Crisis, climbing charts and sparking TED Talks where I'd pace stages, voice cracking on tales of Edward's ghost as cautionary grace. Javier's eye bloomed too, his series on borderless bodies earning a MacArthur nod, whispers of genius trailing him like perfume. We celebrated in Havana, his family's casa a riot of dominoes and daiquiris, abuelas pinching my cheeks and dubbing me El Yerno Perfecto. Amid cigar haze and merengue, I felt anchored, the prodigal son finally home. But anchors drag. Edward's orbit tightened unexpectedly that fall. A collaboration pitch from Out, my words, his visuals, for a special on queer elders surviving the 80s inferno. Javier green-lit it over paella, his fork pausing mid-air. Closure's a gift. Take it. We met at a neutral cafe in the village, steam rising from cortados like peace offerings. Edward looked transformed, lines softened by therapy, his hair threaded silver, eyes clear as reclaimed glass. Heard about the genius grant, he said, genuine warmth lacing the words. Javier's a lucky bastard, I chuckled, tension uncoiling. Nah, I'm the winner, the project ignited. Interviews in senior centers upstate, where octogenarians shared yellowed photos of lost lovers, their voices gravelly with grit. Edward sketched live, pencils capturing arthritic hands clasped, eyes twinkling with wicked anecdotes. One afternoon in a sun-dappled rec room, an old queen named Harlan gripped my arm. Boy, love ain't a straight line. It's a goddamn maze. You learn to dance in the dark. Edward's gaze flicked to mine, loaded. Later, over diner pie, he admitted, Harlan's right. I got lost in hours. Forgiven and forgotten, I said, meaning it. Mostly. The spread dropped to acclaim. Pull quotes in The Atlantic. Panels at AWP. Success bonded us platonically. Coffees turning to walks. His stories of ments mirroring my profiles of activists. Javier joined sometimes. The three of us a tripod, stories swapped like baseball cards. Laughter bridging chasms. Then, fractures aftershock. Victor resurfaced. A glossy invite to Edward's adjunct panel at NYU, Art After Betrayal. And there he was, front row, silver hair slicked, smile predatory. Post-talk, he cornered Edward in the lobby, murmuring compliments that slithered like smoke. I watched from afar, Javier's hand on my elbow a tether. Let him handle, he whispered. Edward rebuffed gracefully. Water under bridges. Vic. I'm dry land now. But the encounter rattled him. That night, texts pinged. Old habits die hard. Thanks for the backup, friend. Friend. The word settled, comfortable as flannel. Winter brought bounty. Javier's exhibit at the Whitney. A whirlwind of previews and toasts. Edward attended, toasting with sparkling water, his presence unremarkable amid the throng. But backstage, as flashes popped, he pulled me aside. Your forward changed everything, Ron. Got me exhibiting in Tokyo next month. Solo, sober, whole, pride swelled. Uncomplicated. Knock 'em dead. You already did for me. Spring heralded expansion. Surrogacy papers signed. A crib assembled in our spare room. Ultrasounds revealed a boy. Due in November, tiny heart flickering like Morse code for miracle. Javier teared up at every appointment, his stoic facade crumbling to coups. Our familia, he'd say. Palm on my belly, though it was Elena's, our carriers, who swelled with our dream. Edward learned via a casual brunch update, his fork pausing over huevos rancheros. A kid? Shit. Ron. Uncle Judy's incoming. We laughed. But his eyes held a shadow, longing, perhaps, for paths not taken. Count on it, I replied. Kerouac needs a playmate. Tokyo called him away for 6 weeks. His absence a void we filled with nursery rhymes and name debates. Mateo? Luca? The baby's kicks synced to Javier's lullabies. A private symphony. Edward's postcards arrived weekly. Haiku scribbled. Ink bleeding from humidity. Cherry blossoms fall / like old loves. Soft and fleeting / new roots push through soil. One enclosed a tiny kimono for the babe. Silk soft as hope. He returned bronzed and buzzing, regaling us over dim sum with tales of Shibuya scrambles and sake-soaked symposia. Japan remade me, he said, chopsticks poised. Saw my work through fresh eyes, raw, real. Like us, back then. Javier refilled his teacup. Growth's the best revenge. Fall foliage blazed as Elena's due date neared. We prepped the hospital bag. Onesies folded like origami. A playlist of Coltrane for labor. Edward offered to dog-sit Kerouac. His loft now a haven of houseplants and half-finished oils. Contractions hit at midnight, a storm front rolling in. Javier drove white-knuckled through lashing rain, my hand in his vice grip. At Mount Sinai, hours blurred, breaths coached, ice chips crunched, Elena's warrior cries echoing halls. Dawn broke as Mateo emerged, slick and squalling, 9 pounds of fury and wonder. Javier cut the cord, tears streaming, while I held Elena's hand, whispering gracias like prayer. Edward met us in the recovery room, Kerouac's leash in one hand, a stuffed samurai bear in the other. Meet the nephew, Javier beamed, cradling our son, tiny fist waving like a flag. Edward's face crumpled, awestruck. He leaned in, voice thick. Hey, little man. Uncle Eddie's got stories for days. Discharge day was chaos. Car seat installed, burp cloths at the ready. Back home, the loft thrummed with new life. Mateo's cries a clarion, Javier's coos a counterpoint. Sleepless nights forged us tighter. Midnight feedings lit by phone glow. Love distilled to essentials. Edward visited often, bouncing Mateo on his knee while regaling us with Pratt anecdotes. Your kid's got artist's fingers, Ron. Long and sure, one evening, as snow dusted the windows, he sketched the babe asleep in my arms, the portrait tender, uncommissioned. For his first gallery wall, he quipped, but his eyes shone earnest. Javier framed it beside our wedding photo, a triptych of time. Then, spring's thaw unearthed old fault lines. A New York Times profile on Edward, from prodigy to phoenix, delved deep, his affairs dissected clinically, Victor and Lucas as muses mistaken for maps. Quotes from me, anonymized, betrayal taught compassion. The piece went viral. Podcasts dissecting, trolls spewing bile. Edward called late, voice frayed. They twisted it, made me the villain in my own redemption. Breathe, I soothed, rocking Mateo as he fussed. Truth's your armor, but armor dense. He spiraled, canceled classes, studio dark. Javier and I staged an intervention at his loft. Coffee and counselors, boundaries drawn with care. We're here, Javier said, firm. But you fight too. He checked into a upstate retreat. 30 days of mindfulness and meds. Postcards trickled. Leaves turning / inside out, like me / roots hold fast. Mateo rolled over on day 29. Gummy grinned triumphant. We FaceTimed Edward, his face pixelated but peaceful. Milestone man, he cheered. Tell him uncle's bringing maple candies. Summer simmered. Park picnics our church. Mateo's first splash in the fountain. Javier's camera clicking like applause. Edward emerged renewed. Gallery talk circuit sober and sharp. Our lives intersected seamless. Playdates at the Brooklyn Botanic, where he'd push the stroller while I chased fireflies with Mateo. One August dusk, as cicadas hummed, he confided over gelato. Therapy unearthed this. I loved you too hard, too scared. Sabotaged to stay safe. I licked mint chip. Sage. We both did. But look, scars make better stories. He nodded, eyes on the horizon. Yeah. And yours? It's epic. Fall brought Mateo's first birthday, balloons bobbing, cake smeared on chubby cheeks. Edward gifted a mobile of hand-carved stars, each etched with a constellation. Orion for strength, Cassiopeia for beauty. Navigate by these, he said, hanging it over the crib. As leaves turned, Javier's next project loomed. 6 months in Mexico City, documenting indigenous queer communities. Come? He asked, map unrolled on the kitchen table. I hesitated, out sabbatical pending, but roots tugged. Edward sensed it, over beers at the local. Go. Mateo's young, world's big. I'll hold the fort, uncle rotation. The decision crystallized. Yes. We packed light, diapers and dreams, flying south as equinox sun gilded the tarmac. Mexico City enveloped us. Zocalo's alive with mariachis, Javier's lens devouring murals of defiant lovers. Mateo babbled in bilingual bliss. Papayas pureed on our balcony overlooking Chapultepec. Edward's visits were portals. A week in Oaxaca, teaching Mateo to weave palm fronds, his laughter echoing markets. This kid's a bridge, he marveled one night, stars wheeling above ruins. Between us, all of it, back in Brooklyn winters, the cycle renewed, Mateo's toddle, Javier's grant extensions, my columns from afar. Edward's star ascended steady. A Guggenheim, queer archive donations. Our bond, a tapestry, threads of then woven into now. Time, that sly thief, pilfered years like loose change. Mateo hit 5 with a vengeance, kindergarten finger paints and soccer cleats, his curls a wild halo echoing Javier's. Our loft expanded via Reno, walls knocked for a studio where Javier edited reels and I hammered manuscripts. Hearts on the Line birthed a sequel, Bridges Unburnt, with Edward's illustrations gracing chapters on forgiveness's quiet revolution. He'd mellowed into avuncular legend, godfather to Mateo, annual pilgrimages to the Jersey Shore where he'd build sandcastles of impossible spires. Art's in the impermanence, he'd say as tides claimed them, Mateo shrieking delight. Javier and I navigated midlife shoals, therapy for parental pressures, date nights rediscovering salsa clubs where hips swayed like olive branches. One anniversary, in a candlelit taqueria, he slipped a locket over my neck. Our first Miami sunset, captured eternal. Still my lose, he murmured. Kiss sealing vows renewed. Edward's life paralleled. Solitary but rich. A partner named Theo. A quiet potter from the pines. Their weekends firefly lit in the pine barrens. No grand gestures. Just clay hands intertwined. Stability he'd craved. Earned through wreckage. Crisis struck unbidden. Summer 24. A call at 3 a.m. Mateo's dinosaur PJs clutched as I answered. Edward's voice. Ragged. Ron, Theo's gone. Aneurysm. Just gone. We flew to Philly. Javier driving rental through pre-dawn fog. Edward's childhood home, suburban rancher, now his reluctant harbor, reeked of lilies and loss. He greeted us hollow-eyed, Theo's kiln cold in the garage. Mateo, sensing gravity, hugged his legs fierce. Uncle Ed, we fix it. Over days blurred by casseroles and condolences, Edward unraveled. Eulogies penned in sobs, clay shards swept from grief-fueled frenzies. Javier cooked arepas, steady as bedrock. I read aloud from Harlan's old letters, voices of elders who'd outlived beloveds. Grief's a season, I said one midnight, his head on my shoulder like old times. Winter bites, but spring creeps in. He nodded, tears soaking my shirt. How'd you know when to let go? With us? Never fully. But you make space for Javier, Mateo. For this, Theo's memorial was Quaker simple. Pottery circle in a Quaker meeting house. Mourners fingering wheel-thrown bowls. Stories shared in silence broken by sobs. Edward spoke last, voice steadying. He taught me home's not a place. It's the hands that hold you. Mateo toddled forward, placing a finger-painted heart on the altar. For Theo. Love big. Edward crumpled then, Javier and I flanking him as wails echoed rafters. In the cemetery's hush, under oaks shedding copper leaves, he whispered, thanks for coming. For everything. Family, Javier said. Simple. Rebuilding was glacial. Edward shuttered the studio, traveled light volunteering in New Orleans, rebuilding homes post-flood, his sketches donated to survivors. Postcards to Mateo. Hurricanes howl / but hands rebuild stronger / your turn someday. Champ. We rallied. Holiday cards with Theo's recipes. A kiln revival where Mateo molded lopsided mugs. Spring saw Edward's return to canvas, series titled Vessels. Bowls cracked and mended with gold leaf. Kintsugi incarnate. The show, at a Soho co-op, drew crowds. Critics lauded resilience rendered visceral. Opening night, Javier and I arrived with Mateo in tow, bow-tied and beaming. Edward dedicated it to Theo, my mender, then pulled us aside. This one's for you three. The anchors. Mateo's 8th birthday brought whimsy. A backyard bash in Fort Greene, piñata bursting candy rain. Edward arrived with a surprise, our first kiss sketch, restored and enlarged, now a mural on his studio wall. Full circle, he said, hoisting Mateo onto shoulders. From small to epic, as dusk fell, fireflies winking like conspirators, Javier and I swayed to a busker's guitar, Mateo chasing lights with Edward. Think he'll remember this? Javier murmured, chin on my shoulder. Every spark. Years accelerated. Mateo's braces and basketball. Javier's Guggenheim sequel. My tenure at the Atlantic. Edward mentored a queer arts collective. Theo's legacy in every grant. Our paths converged at milestones. Mateo's bar mitzvah, Javier's nod to his Cuban Jewish roots, blending klezmer and conga. Crisis redux. 28. A diagnosis for me. Prostate shadows on scans. Whispers of surgery. Javier's vigil was fierce. Mateo's hugs medicinal. Edward flew in, sketchpad in hand. Portrait of a warrior, he titled it. Me midlaugh. Unbowed. Recovery was rote, chemo fog. Hair tufted like thistle, but love was elixir. Edward's visits were tonic. Bad jokes, better bourbon. You beat the plague once, he quipped, referencing my AIDS-era pieces. This? Mosquito bite. Remission rang bells. We toasted on the high line. Skyline a testament. To chapters unfinished, Edward raised his glass. Fall 30 marked Stonewall's Golden Jubilee. Parades planetary. Our trio marching with elders. Mateo's sign. Love wins. Always. Edward's float bore murals of us all past, present, woven. After, in a rooftop bar overlooking the Hudson, windswept and wistful, he turned to me. That first kiss small. Yeah. But it scripted this. Gesture sweeping Javier. Mateo dozing on a bench. I clinked bottles. Best plot twist. Epilogues gentle. Gray hairs mutual. Lines etched like love letters. Javier and I pen memoirs intertwined. Edward illustrates threads of us. A trilogy. Mateo, Teental, interns at the collective, his sketches echoing ours. One crystalline December eve, snow veiling Brooklyn brownstones, we gather for now, with Mateo's boyfriend, Shy Alex, in tow. Around the tree, ornaments from Berlin, Havana, Philly, our map. Edward raises a toast, eyes misted. To small beginnings, vast horizons, and the hearts that hold it all. Glasses chime, laughter rises. Outside, the city hums, eternal, like us. Our first kiss felt small, but it was the moment that changed every chapter. And in the end, that's the humanism of it. We break, we mend, we love anyway. Fierce. Flawed. Forever.